Hello, welcome to a special edition of the podcast. Britain is in shock after the fatal stabbing of a Member of Parliament. Sir David Amess, the Conservative MP for Southend West, was stabbed multiple times at a surgery in a Methodist church where he was meeting people from his constituency. Sir David was helicoptered to hospital in critical condition and died shortly before 3 p.m. on Friday, the 15th of October. Police arrested a 25-year-old man on suspicion of murder. Ali-harbi-Ali, a British national of Somali heritage, is being held at a London police station under the Terrorism Act. The attack has been declared a terrorist incident. Jack Morrell, you're a former major crime detective. How do the police approach such an emotive case as this?
Well, the emotion will be taken out of it. What needed to be done, and clearly has been doing, is that the Special Operations Unit who will be investigating the murder are allowed to do just that and do their job at the scene and with witnesses. The wider implications of this have then been taken over by the Counter-Terrorism Command from Scotland Yard. Now, regionally, we have Special Operations Units and we have a regional counter-terrorism structure now. So this should be able to happen anywhere in the country if something as appalling as this takes place somewhere else. So, as I've said, the team dealing with the murder of David Amess should be left really alone and protected to get on with that. The Terrorism Act aspect of it is useful for a number of reasons. One is it will bring in more resources should they be needed. And also in terms of the suspect, it allows their detention to be extended for, I think in this case, it's up to a full week. Whether they take that up before this man is charged, should he be charged, is another matter. But what that extra detention allows is that they can do a more thorough and complete investigation whilst they've got the suspect in custody. Because with terrorism matters, there could well be another planned attack. And that's the thing that this legislation needs to avoid, so the police can avoid a further incident taking place. So there we are, we have it. Unfortunately, we have a suspect in custody who surrendered himself at the time, which does make the whole job a little bit easier.
And we should say that at this particular moment, which is lunchtime on Wednesday, the 20th of October, nobody has been charged in connection with this terrible attack. There's been quite a lot of toxic and increasingly polarized political comment around this. Jack, what's your take on that?
Well, I think there's an knee-jerk reaction which needs to be tempered slightly. It's easier said than done. You know, we're living in a very volatile political climate, and with social media allowing what they're seen as hate and stuff being exchanged. But, you know, to be sort of put a lid on all that, social media hasn't allowed these people to exist and have their warped view on things. Far from it. Whether they use social media to encourage or to find more relevance to that may well be seen, but we need to see what happens, what comes out, what this individual's motivation was, and what his state of mind was. Because, you know, this isn't new. Social media is fairly new, but political assassinations, if we want to call this that, have happened in the past. You know, we've had them in the 70s with the IRA, Airy Neve. We've had the Brighton bomb. Now, the people behind that weren't using social media to further their hate and their political attitude at the time. They found it by other means, and so the social media aspect shouldn't be blamed any more than any other network of individuals who seek to further their political aims.
Because I suppose if you shut down social media or increasingly scrutinise social media and people's activity on social media, that's going to be an affront to democracy.
I think it is, and we know that social media actually works very well for a lot of people. I've had a trawl through my account on Twitter and seen a lot of this sort of toxic polarization that's being talked about. But equally, it brings a lot of social activity rather than antisocial to a lot of people, including people who have a lot of difficulties and maybe feel a little bit isolated. They do find it, if you handle it right, it can be a good thing. If you allow it to, if you only follow stuff that you choose to, that gives you a warped view of society, then it's a problem. But that's the problem for the individual who chooses to do that.
How do we keep MPs safe while still allowing them access to the public and the public access to them?
Well, these things have been discussed regularly over the period, and yes, MPs should get the chance to have some form of protection, particularly when it's in their diary that they're going to be in the public eye. And the MP's surgery where David Amess was holding when he was attacked was one of those. So yes, maybe there's going to need to be a more stringent check or better security at the actual location. But there's only so much can be done with regard to that.
Do you think part of the answer to this, in response to terrorism in general, is that finally, once and for all, UK police officers should carry firearms as a matter of routine?
Well, it's funny you say that. There was a poll on Twitter that I caught sight of, and it was run by an ex-police officer who's quite an influential individual. And he asked basically this question. He asked, in light of recent events, given the known threat and risk, is it time to issue and train all police officers with sidearms? And bear in mind that the majority of these people will be police officers or former police officers. And the answer of yes was 46.5%. So 53.5% said no. And that's with the emotion of this current situation. So I think generally, an armed police officer at every political surgery would be a backward step and not necessarily remove the threat of an individual such as this in this case.
So you're saying we shouldn't throw a ring of steel around our politicians, around our elected representatives?
No, I don't think we should. And I think even, those in Parliament who are feeling very vulnerable at the moment, when the dust settles, they will probably feel the same. And I think it would be a backward step if that does become the norm.
I remember my former MP, Ken Clarke, who'd been Home Secretary and therefore was quite a high-profile target for terrorism. His only precautions were that outside his constituency office was a no parking zone and all the litter bins were removed, so there was nowhere to easily plant or hide a bomb. Short of putting armed guards on the door of every constituency surgery, what could be done? What have you seen done? What have other MPs done?
Well, whatever measures are taken tend to be at the request of the particular MP. When they're a serving minister, they sort of have to have some form of protection. But once they've retired from that role, or no longer in that role, it's really down to them. And Kenneth Clarke being a good example of, while he was Home Secretary, clearly he was seen as a threat, and it would have been unforgivable if he was unprotected at some stage. But as time goes on, he's allowed to make his own judgment. And David Amess, I don't believe, has had a ministerial post. But again, he should, him and other MPs should be allowed to decide what threat they have really, and where they see some of this hate that's directed towards them. My MP at the moment, on his social media, he doesn't allow comments from anyone he doesn't follow back. And I actually think that's quite a useful tool. People will argue that he's not engaging with the public. However, any individual can't respond to every reply on their accounts, particularly when it gets nasty. So he's ruled that hate online out of the equation for him. So there's various measures can be taken in terms of physical protection and also this online stuff that is being talked about. So let's hope things improve, and let's hope that some calm and collected decisions are taken going forward.
Jack, thanks for sharing your thoughts. We'll be monitoring developments on this case to see how it plays out. Sir David was born and brought up in the East End of London, where he was a teacher and a recruitment consultant before entering politics. He served on various parliamentary committees, was knighted in 2015, and leaves a wife and 5 children. And our thoughts are very much with his family at this time.